Ventura,
Yep.
not the best example to make that connection. But there are certainly people who have credentials. How do we evaluate the credentials of politicians?
There's an interesting dimension of politics, which is inspiration. If we look at some of the great leaders, they haven't necessarily been the best in a technical area.
Exactly.
Jesse Ventura was inspirational. Arnold Schwarzenegger, to some degree, is inspirational. John Kennedy was inspirational. Roosevelt was inspirational. Reagan was inspirational. There's a difference of quality required to create optimism, to create hopefulness, to have vision. Is a quality that is expert in a politician, but you get very, very few of those nowadays.
Well, you know, you're supposed to have a standard that you live by, and you're supposed to carry your standard forward. You either do have it or you don't have it. The visual medium, and also the media in general, has a way of taking a look at who you are and then finding out, okay, where it is that you've gone. The history and the actual accomplishments of somebody are scrutinized to degrees beyond what I think.
It's
not only
superhuman.
it's really impossible to come up to some kind of level.
Yeah. Well, it's about politics becoming a lot very negative, and we need to focus on the visionary. What is that candidate proposing for the future? And of course, there's this swift boating phenomena where we go find some detail of a politician's past and tear them down. But we want to really focus on what their plan is for the future. What politicians have done is they're focusing on the elections, just the elections, getting through the elections, and the master panderer tends to win the election. We have to change that. We have to change that to have the visionary and those that empower society win the election. We have to focus on the positive. Because if we continue to reinforce this negative politic, what happens is we never get the inspirational plan into the public listening.
Sure.
So there are plans that take decades to perform. Major roadworks or other communications infrastructures or technological centers. Takes decades to achieve that kind of result. You can't just have this 2-year plan for assemblymen and senators and a little longer plan for governor. It has to go beyond their term. They have to be people of vision and willing to stick by the plan, to say that this is important, this is a seed we're going to develop over the long run. Could you imagine if farmers just never planted anything because they said, well, it's going to be snowing in a couple months, again, and they had a planting cycle of 1 month. No, they were a planting cycle of a year. So in politics, we need a planting cycle of decades.
Which can't be handled in a 2-year or 4-year term.
No, and you have to have that level of commitment and respect for the voting public to know that they want that leadership.
It seems so difficult for me to grasp a hold of the possibility of somebody who's a 9th grader or 11th grader gaining enough information out of the system that we have now, which we've already agreed to has not benefited, and then walking through and gaining somehow civic education in their life to become a politician.
It's up to adults to grab control of these systems and stop the insanity of what we have. And we have to empower these children to know that there is a long run and it's worth the commitment and sacrifice to achieve.
What about the idea of policy by polling? It seems to me that people are more apt to learn from a percentage that's given on the media, by the media on some form that would tell more about this politician somehow than any accomplishment or any real activity that this politician has.
It's got to go beyond satisfaction level. You can't just say if you like the person or don't like the person. It has to go into the issues. What's really, really important. Of course, one of the things we hear again and again
is too much summation on these polls.
Exactly.
It's too much summation.
It's not like, well, okay, if you're paying a lot of taxes, what problem do you want to go away in exchange for your taxes? So maybe it's transportation. You don't want to be caught on the road for an extra hour to 2 hours a day, or maybe it's health care that you're paying a lot of taxes, but you don't have access to health care, or we've talked in detail about education, or it could be about housing. What problems would you solve? Let's get away from, like you say, the summation and get into the details. The devil is in the details.
That's right. And nobody wants to go through that.
Right.
They want to look at all the details in some kind of averaging way and take that person to a level of averaged.
Right. And that's what they do, exactly.
Yeah.
And the idea of dumbing down the schools disempowers the kids, and they don't look to achieve. They don't look to create. They don't look to invent. It's only a supported child that will become inventive, that will become a positive role model for other generations.
There's some ideas regarding getting money. At this time in politics, is the topic of the show. I mean, we're looking at a very convoluted mess out there. The average person can't grasp everything that you so eloquently put forward. But what about possibilities of taking the immediate pinch of taxation? Like, our cost for gas right now is right at the forefront of everyone's mind.
There's actually answers for these problems, but they're lobbied against. For example, there isn't one American-made hybrid passenger car. Zero. Why is that? Are we dumb?
I think it has to do with, I know we've been working on it for years, but I know that the system of...
Why are we working on it for years and other countries have bunches of them?
Because of our unions, to be honest with you, is the biggest problem.
Not on a hybrid car, I think, you know...
No, our unions keeping the existing...
This is leadership and government planning. If you said, well, we're going to have a $5,000 tax rebate or a $5,000 deduction for hybrid cars made in America, we would have them.
Greg, we have not been doing our share in Michigan, in
There's
Detroit,
no leadership.
in Pontiac. No, they've decided a long time, 20 years ago, I remember reading Pontiac is going to get on board with the hydrogen car or the electronic car. I don't remember the first one that came about. But the unions have kept them operating in the same fashion they've been, in a losing cycle,
it's a terrible
keeping
leadership.
their benefits package going. I mean, it might be leadership at the forefront of what we're saying, but I think there's too much control.
The Ford Edge is proposed to be released in hybrid.
Yes.
Proposed. Why isn't it out there?
Don't you remember the proposal that General Motors made about 8 years ago or 10 years ago? They've been there. They're just not doing it because they can't break.
Well, people don't want to buy their cars anymore. And we need to get wise to that.
And they certainly haven't been, that's for sure.
When government doesn't step in, we have what we have. We have this constant malaise, this constant lack of change. And we need change.
Yeah, we got about, go ahead, give me another 15 or 20 seconds here about what you think you can do to help out going forward.
Well,
we got to break it.
There is a big problem with energy politics as part of this, as you mentioned. And we have to realize that we have stumbling blocks to energy politics and to all kinds of improvements. For example, we have tower law. So there's no windmills. Windmills cost 1/3 as much
the energy issue,
as solar panels.
Well, I want you to take charge of that when you get up there.
Politics, you have to have leaders that are willing to take a stand.
You know,
if they're not willing to take a stand, get rid of them.
Okay, thank you very much, Greg. I greatly appreciate the effort you made to show. That's Greg Fischer. And in the past, by the way, not necessarily now because your future's ahead of you, politicians are like diapers. They should be changed regularly and for the same reasons. Societal and political trends are rapidly breaking down the family that once was a cornerstone of our great American culture. At FIT, we know you cannot get this information on your own. Obviously, you cannot. So we'll bring it to your TV every single week. We always invite all opposing views. My name is Dimaggio. Thank you very much for watching FIT TV, and we'll see you again next week.